Friday, March 8th, and we have a really special call for you guys today. It's going to be a long one, so I hope you guys are prepared for some information to be dropped and you have some snacks ready on the side as well, maybe some popcorn and some bacon. So before we begin, I want to kind of make a couple different statements as well to help people prepare for the information that's going to be coming. So first of all, if you're not part of QSI, please join the community. We are open, we are free for the whole world to join, but just know that our chat is very advanced. So before you come in and actually join the chat, you will have to take a beginner's training quiz to help you bridge between becoming being a new person in Stellar and becoming at least an intermediate level Stellar member. That way you don't get lost in our chat. Also, because this call is extremely comprehensive, I'm going to do my best to try to compress everything into some of the most important lessons that I've seen. So we're going to have a call on Stellar, on BDT, and also it's going to kind of highlight Francis Bacon's inductive reasoning. I expect this call to be roughly 2 to 3 hours. If it goes a little bit longer than that, then that's fine. When we post the replay, we'll just break them up in little chunks so people are not overwhelmed with how much information there is. Now, I think what's really important about this call is all of us who've been studying Stellar and Jacera, we know what's going to happen, but we have a hard time understanding how and why it's going to happen. But that's what's really important to understand to make us experts, because really the white hats are looking at us to become the experts, not just me, but all of us combined. And so what I don't want to happen is I don't want people to get confused, and I don't want them to incorrectly summarize this information, which is often what happens after people hear a long call. Because when you incorrectly summarize something or you take something out of context, that's what allows other people to start sharing misinformation and disinformation narratives. And when that starts to propagate the space, then other people have a much harder time differentiating the truth from fiction. So that being said, as future stellar nodes, our duty is to stay integrous to the information, to validate only the truth of what's coming. And in that same respect, we're also going to be debunking some of the false narratives too. So our goal as a teaching channel, for me, it's important for you to not just listen to the D class and then mindlessly regurgitate it afterwards, but really, I want you guys to understand how was this information discovered. Therefore, you can also validate the information yourself afterwards. And when you do, you'll also know how, why, what is this secret that's been overlooked for so many years? And you'll be able to see all these hidden Easter eggs hiding in plain sight. And Nick, if I can have you mute Telegram, please. So,
Yeah.
so what I want to do is I want to equip you guys with knowledge so you can strengthen your resolve, your conviction. I want you guys to help us educate the masses, because I think this will be one of the primary calls that really helps tie all of our learning together. So today, no conspiracy theories whatsoever. We're going to hit you with public proofs, facts from the most trusted sources available. So if you are brand new to technology terms like I am, then please take some excellent notes. We do have some technology experts with us on this call as well. But if you are in the IT, the technology, the programming, coding space, please take extra notes because this is truly where Francis Bacon's inductive reasoning comes into play. Because a lot of this information has been sneaking in behind the scenes, confusing and baffling a lot of our tech experts. So, with that being said, normally how we structure our big D class calls is I kind of drop information in the beginning and then I hit you with one, maybe two D classes at the end of the call. Well, this call is going to be more like a series of bombs. So if you took it in like a big picture thinking, there are roughly 60 slides of intel alone. About half of them will prepare you for the bombs, and we'll have about 30 slides of D classes. So it's going to be D class after D class after D class. And because it's such a massive presentation, I'm actually splitting into 4 different categories to help you guys be able to visually understand the structure, the flow of the presentation a little bit better. And in between every section, we'll have a short time to give some commentary if the panel would like to as well. So the 4 sections, we're going to start off with what is some of the background information that you need to know to look into the actual BDTD class. we're going to cover the highlights of just the Stellar blockchain D classes from last year. So it prepares you to open your mind. And then in the next 3 sections, we'll talk about the features of BDT, the security and how it's quantum security. And then finally, the last section, which again, guys, is about half this presentation, are the D classes. So with that being said, thank you all so much for joining us, and let's get started. I'm going to get my screen share up and ready to go. So give me 1 second, guys. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my screen okay? Perfect. Oh, hold on. My screen disappeared. All right, so this one is called Bigler Bomb Stellar Endgame, and I hope if I do a good enough job by the end of this call, you guys will know why it's the Stellar Endgame and have no hesitation whatsoever that you are in the right place. So first of all, it's always been Stellar. It's never been another blockchain. It's never been another thing. It didn't just become Stellar. It was planned from the very beginning. And we're going to walk through just a handful of reasons why it has to and always has been Stellar. So most of you guys probably remember all throughout last year, but really since the end of 2021, that's when I started noticing that every single upgrade to Ethereum was actually an upgrade to become interoperable with Stellar. And some of you who have been with QSI for a long time will probably remember that the actual ERC 4337, which is one of the methods of upgrading Ethereum, actually has built into it self-destruct. So I find that really funny because Ethereum has been planning to self-destruct and how it's going to get flushed into Stellar, right? So just a couple more proofs. ERC 4337, another big part of it is actually account abstraction. Now, if you're just catching up on our intel, you don't know what AA means, it basically is a shortened version of the ability to hack into a wallet and reclaim the assets, or for the public, it's just known as breaking into your own wallet. You can find the keys again, right? So if you've lost your keys, misplaced it, whatever it is, they can reconstruct your keys. That's the public version. The private version is you can hack into a wallet if you're a white hat and you have access to this technology. And if you're a black hat, you're screwed because now your wallet belongs to the white hats. So it's basically white hat hacking for controlled demolition. And I think after 2 years now, everybody in QSI is very familiar with this concept. We've showed it in many, many other places, so many other proofs, which I know we'll be talking about later on this call. Now, one of the big things that we talked about last year was IBM Hyperledger, which connects to Linux. And what people may not know if they're newer to QSI is the Hyperledger series of protocols or applications is actually broken into 3 different segments. The first one, what I call puppet mastery, because if you see here on the screen, Aries, Besu, Fabric, etc., these all talk about breaking in, managing secret keys. It talks about Ethereum, Ethereum, Ethereum. And finally, Sawtooth is what talks about PBFT, the practical Byzantine fault tolerance, which we'll get to later as well. But so as you can see, the summary of it is you're going to be able to control Ethereum and move it over into Stellar. And that's why IBM is such a massive partner of Stellar. Now, I think everybody knows by now that IBM is one of the biggest partners for Stellar, but many people may have forgotten or maybe didn't learn before that Deloitte is also a big partner. They actually came and they joined the Stellar ecosystem in 2016. And look, it says Deloitte partners with Stellar for cross-border instant payments. Then in 2017, IBM joined with Stellar, again, major partnership deal for cross-border payment solution. Then 1 year later, in 2018, IBM introduced WorldWire, which is their big blockchain, and that's run on the Stellar network. So as you see, 3 years in a row, it's been lining up where Stellar, again, has always been the one for cross-border instant payments. And what you'll notice on the screen as well is they never partnered with Ripple. Recently, they started partnering with Ripple, but their partnership is actually very limited. One example that I'll just briefly touch on is In 2023, so just last year, IBM partnered with Ripple, but it's only for hard wallets. So it has nothing to do with the rest of actual payment processing. That's why it has to be Stellar. Now, we talked about how IBM and Hyperledger and Ethereum, they're all coming in, but then how do you prove it from the other end of the spectrum? Well, that's why we have Soroban, guys. This I thought was really, really funny. In the Soroban document or website itself, it talks about Soroban, but many people have not been talking about Hard Hat just yet. And if you look, Soroban framework is very similar to the Hard Hat framework. It's all about deploying, testing, debugging smart contracts. But what is the big difference? Well, the big difference is Hard Hat is only geared for EVM, which is your Ethereum virtual machine, whereas Soroban is for everything. It's for all blockchains, all assets, and for all off-chain assets as well. So why is Hard Hat an interesting name? Well, if you look at OSHA, this is a quote directly from OSHA. Hard hats are required where there is a possible danger of head injury from impact or from falling or flying objects or from electrical shock and burns. So literally, Stellar is telling you that you need a hard hat because Ethereum is going to crash. And so again, guys, it's just further proof it's all about self-destruction. So now we know we have proof from all different angles and perspectives that Stellar is the new QFS standard. And I believe it'll be sometime next year in 2025. I don't have an estimated timing on it just yet, but you'll start to see more and more in the news that this narrative of a quantum financial system will start to shift to quantum stellar financial system, because that is a very specific request I've made to our developers, who most of us know are actually the white hats, and many of them are on the Q teams themselves. And so they've acknowledged and they've honored that request to make it happen, but that'll probably start around 2025. So to kind of round out the rest of this brief introduction, again, guys, you might remember that IBM and Red Hat were a major part of the sneakiness of why Stellar was able to kind of flow behind the scenes without too much fanfare in the public limelight. Now, recall just recently, a couple years ago, IBM closed a landmark acquisition with Red Hat. And this is a call that we did massive calls with. I think there were 3 or 4 calls we did with Hawkeyes, with Sinjin, and many other people. Mimsy was on a separate call as well, because this was so big. And I really want you guys to remember the fact that Matt Hicks, who is the current CEO of Red Hat, he is the one who said that layoffs are a healthy thing, and that you have to do them every once in a while to make sure you're putting the investment into the right areas, and they're going to help you to become successful with your customers. So the reason why this is important to know is because throughout this call, we're going to focus a lot on AI, AI, robotics, etc. But it's really this generative machine learning, artificial intelligence, this automation that's being developed behind the scenes that allows everything that we're looking forward to become a reality. So guys, again, please keep in mind the concept of the importance of generative machine learning in this. Now, another interesting timeline to keep in mind is this massive acquisition of Red Hat came 4 months before IBM partnered with Stellar, which means they were already ready to put in and implement these Red Hat initiatives into the Stellar blockchain. So the final slide before we start, a little brief introduction to the next section is, you guys probably remember prettier.js. This is a file type that was one of the funniest discoveries that I made, because if you are a programmer or in the IT world, typically people know of prettier.js as just a normal format file, and they don't really do very much. It kind of sits there and it, quote unquote, makes the file prettier. But because we put on our ninja sneaky hats, we were able to then construe that prettier.js is actually a sneaky file that you can upload into a system or a computer, and it can actually take over the computer because you're replacing the information inside it depending on how the file was written. So that's another massive theme we're going to be discovering throughout this call is the ability to rewrite files. So with that being said, I want to stop my screen share temporarily and give the opportunity for the panelists to make any commentary if they wish to. Anybody? Go ahead.
I was
Hi,
trying.
everyone. Oops, go ahead, Sinjin.
So is it my understanding, hard hat is basically the Ethereum self-destruct mechanism? Is that what you were trying to say?
Not that it's the self-destruct mechanism, but it allows them to be testing it so they can be, right? It's the Sorbonne version for just Ethereum. So
Because that's what it sounded like, is that the smart contracts, they're creating smart contracts to self-destruct it.
yes, absolutely. And remember, guys, it's a two-way street. So you have Ethereum who's building self-destruct on their end, and you have Stellar who's also building self-destruct on their end, and they're meeting in the middle, and that's where the red hat comes into play. Hawkeyes, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not surprised that IBM is one of the big partners into Stellar, and it makes a complete total business sense because when you're in the big IT world, and I'm talking about logisticals or supply chain or even banking, especially banking or anything with financial, they all use IBM related technologies because it's a legacy system and it's the only big environment applications and system that is able to handle the volume and the performance of processing millions and billions of records. So it makes logical sense for them to partner with Stellar from the very beginning. And then in terms of Deloitte and Touche, it is one of the big, well, it was big eight, I think now six. I lost track after I retired. But they themselves is also involved a lot with the auditing. So it would make sense that each of them bring in their business knowledge and expertise to, of course, create a new ecosystem. And I am happy that they're making progress, especially because with IBM, with the legacy system, you're dealing with a lot of people who are very conservative and very narrow minded. But now it sounds like they're broadening their horizon and they're actually having a handshake and interface conversion to go from the old to the new. But they do need to go to that middle step, which where Red Hat Linux came in. Because you basically have like the big giant, which is IBM, and then you have the smaller people, maybe like Microsoft or Linux, the smaller player, but they have to make certain milestones achievement before they can kind of go and convince the bigger guy. So anyway, that's my input.
Yes, absolutely. And just a quick aside, if you guys have not been in QSI for a while, you may not remember why Deloitte is so massive for Stellar. But those of you who have been around, then you probably remember something called Atom. Atom, ATOM, is what we refer to when we talk about the massive quantum ledger. So just as Hawkeye mentioned a second ago, Deloitte, well, Deloitte Touche is one of the big accounting firms of the whole world. I think they're considered Big Four right now. And what they've done in the background is they've built this gigantic quantum ledger. And it's not just for Stellar. They can see all the blockchains. They've merged it all together. And they can, and because of who they are and the training that they've had, and they tap into every single, not just the blockchains, but they tap into all the banks of the world. They tap into all the governments of the world. Some of the people who have the authorization behind the access of using Atom have also been trained. As an example, detective who we work with, he's been trained by US Secret Services and US Department of Treasury, which means like right now, we as normal people, currently we're normal people, we can see into the public blockchain and you can only see a person's identity by their wallet string, right? We don't know who it is unless they tell us who it is. But on the back end, on the Atom, because they have access to the KYC AML, they can see everybody's identity. They can see all the good guys, all the bad guys, and where the money is flowing. And because of the quantum intentions being built into the blockchain, they can see if this little cockroach is scurrying over here and they send their money, right? If they're money launderers, as an example, and they send their money out to 1,000 people, and from 1,000 people, maybe some of them off ramp it, turn it back into fiat, and they go through, black market channels. they can track all of that too because they're not connected over to the military. That's why it's so powerful. Does anybody else want to add anything before I go to the next section?
Yeah, this makes perfect sense because I was reading about XRP building a side chain for smart contracts because they were trying to compete with Stellar, and their side chain is Ethereum based. And I scratched my head and said, Ethereum based, Ethereum's not going to be here anymore. So basically, they're building a side chain to be blown up, or it probably won't even be built at all. But they were just basically kind of giving a heads up that they were going to be building the side chain on Ethereum, which again is going to be disappearing. So I guess that was part of the plan in terms of announcements. Sorry, XRP Army.
Yeah. And guys, keep in mind that with XRP, it's also they have such a massive audience, right? And so part of the psyops is if you teach stellar people, which is just us, you know, a little pocket in the world, we learn about smart contracts and we learn about everything coming in. But the XRP army is way bigger. And so if you teach XRP Army about smart contracts and bridging over somewhere else, then you're now teaching millions of people as opposed to thousands of people. So it's a very smart move on the part of the White Hats. Last comments, or shall I move on? Okay, so let's go to the next section.